Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt
And
Roast.
I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to a new White Lotus Season 3 theory discussion. I'm sure you guys are like us and are just like, why do we have to end this season now? There's only one episode left, and it's painful, but I mean, it seems like we're going to get an extended finale that's hopefully going to answer a lot of questions, including the big one we have all wondered about with Rick and Jim Hollinger for pretty much the entirety of this season.
Yeah, what is the real connection here? We know that Rick's mom told him that Jim is the person who killed his dad, but is that really true? I mean, after we just saw this past episode, kind of the look on Jim's face, I don't know that it is true. Like, is he the person who actually did this, or is he actually just Rick's dad, which has been out there for the whole season?
I think what's made me think a little bit more about this theory over the past couple of days is for whatever reason, I had just assumed this idea that, oh, if Jim actually is Rick's father, it can be the chance for these two to come together after all this period of time and have this healing moment. And is the show really going to be about giving us that? But then I kind of sat back again and I was like, the White Lotus is still a really dark show. Just because Jim and Rick may be related, that does not mean that Jim is happy Rick's there. That does not mean Jim will not want to kill Rick.
It also doesn't mean that Rick is going to be happy about it either. There's, one thing to be told that your father is dead, that he was murdered, he was this great guy. And then you learn, no, he actually just ran off to Thailand and then didn't actually be part of your life at all. It was all part of this lie. It all kind of depends, right? Like, did his mother tell him this lie so that, Jim was told this lie as well, that there is no Rick, so he has no idea? Or did he know and he abandoned him? Like, that can be some really hard feelings for Rick.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to talk through the lens of just the amount of time that these two characters had in this past episode, and also this idea of like, okay, are we going to see Jim Hollinger again in the finale? Because I mean, Scott Glenn's in the opening credits for this season, and he's not like he's been omnipresent through the past 7 episodes.
No, we've seen him one time.
Yeah, like we gotta have a little bit more of this guy, right? Well, okay, we're gonna get further into all of this, but before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we will be back, of course, breaking down this White Lotus finale. What happens? Who gets killed? Who ends up having, I don't know, a quote unquote happy-ish ending and beyond the White Lotus. The Last of Us is premiering very, very soon. We're going to be covering season 2 throughout with all sorts of coverage, reviews, theories, and so much more.
Also, if you're looking for another show that is similar to White Lotus,
Mhm.
Nine Perfect Strangers season 2 is coming back. It's seemingly coming back in the next few months. They haven't actually given a premiere date, but
Yeah.
that is what is being said right now. The show is similar in a lot of really good ways, so we will be covering that here
Yes.
at the channel. So hit that subscribe button and stick with us. And if you want to support us further and have more White Lotus discussion, you can follow us over on our Patreon. We'll have a link for you below. Over there, we are covering exclusively The Pit, which is wrapping up over on Max.
Yeah.
Such a good show. And
Really
Bosch Legacy, which is in its final season and is the only place that you can get those videos. So thank you so much to everyone who is supporting us on Patreon.
Thank you guys. We really, really do appreciate that.
Mhm.
Okay, let's just break down a lot of this conversation between Jim and Rick, because I think there's a couple of pretty big inflection points that happen here that kind of get all of our wheels turning. I mean,
Yeah.
just starting with the fact that it's very clear that Jim does recognize the name of Rick's mother. So this is not Rick's mother pulling a random name out of a hat here. Like, on some level, there's an element of truth to what it was that she said.
Yes, absolutely. He recognizes her name, which means that he either recognizes that this is his son or he did actually murder the father.
Yeah, and so that part of it's interesting in itself. And I know it sounds like he's lived in Thailand for a very, very long time.
That
And
doesn't mean he doesn't travel.
no, that's the thing. Like, people can go almost anywhere, especially somebody who has been set up to be as rich and as wealthy as this guy has, which also, of course, raises the possibility that even if he is responsible for the death of Rick's mother, he may not have necessarily had that. Actually, no, sorry, the death of Rick's father.
Mhm.
That means that he may not have done it directly. He could have hired somebody. He could have done X, Y, or Z, all of these other different things. But okay, inflection point number two here is just that Rick does his whole spiel. He lays it all out there. He does the whole chair push. And Jim doesn't really say anything. And we can read that in a couple of different ways.
Mhm.
Either that he's guilty, he's responsible, he knows that, or he's just frankly in shock and he doesn't actually know what to say.
Yeah, I think he probably, I mean, is in shock. I mean, he's an older man. He's been pushed
Yeah.
over. I think he's just in shock. This is a lot of information.
Yeah.
If he did murder Rick's father, he's being confronted with a crime
Yes.
that he committed years back, but it doesn't matter that there's somebody out there who knows that he is responsible and that person is standing in front of him. Or
Yeah.
he's realized that this is his son and that either he knew about it and left, so there is a guilt there, or he never knew about it and he was just in the dark about it and he's just learning that he has a son, which is a huge revelation as well. He just has look of shock all over him that it can't just be because he fell over in his chair.
No, like there is absolutely something more here. And if I'm trying to piece together a little bit of the timeline here, where it's like, okay, if Rick's mother knew that Jim was the father and didn't just decided not to tell Rick ever about that, why would that be? Especially if Jim is so wealthy, it's because she would know then that okay, he's still involved in a lot of really dark and shady stuff.
Yes.
She may have then realized, okay, he is just not a good influence. He's not somebody I would want around my kid. And, you know, maybe she mistakenly thinks that, oh, if she frames it this way before her death, then it's going to be less incentive for Rick to want to go and look versus if she's just like, I know who your father is. This is who it is. Blah, 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 blah. He's alive. That will make Rick go and look. And maybe she thinks that will get Rick in more trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like Jim has done some things in his past that he's not proud of. Does it mean that he's killed people? Maybe not. But
Yeah.
if this is actually Rick's father, then that seems like a good motivation for his mother to be like, okay, you know what? Jim is not going to be a good influence. He's going to make things very difficult for
Yeah.
my baby. So I'm just going to send him on his way. I'm not going to tell him about the baby. And then on my deathbed, I want to make sure that Rick does not go looking for his father. So I will just tell him that he is murdered. That way he can never go looking for him because there's nobody to find. And I'll just say that this person is the murderer because who is going to go up to someone who's a murderer and be like, I know that you killed somebody. You are looking to get yourself killed. I think she probably felt like all of these elements together would keep Rick from doing this.
And that's why I think we get into this point where there may be a lot of characters in the greater world of the White Lotus who are effectively playing a game of chicken at this point, where they're just like being very, very careful and very much hoping that they can make it through whatever scene or whatever moment. Like Rick's mom may have been hoping that this was going to be an easy way to make it through and that, you know, Rick would never try to seek this person out. But, you know, she's very, very wrong about that. Now, the big question that I've had ever since this whole scene happened on this past episode is just that, like, if you are Jim and you know you are Rick's father, why not just go full Vader here and be like, I am your father in the midst of all of this? And it would make maybe the confrontation a little bit less. I'm guessing, and this is a very big tinfoil hat, that it's like either he thinks that this confession won't make any difference in this moment and it'll just make Rick feel like he's been abandoned for the better part of his life, or because people seem to be very, very much interested in holding on to their money, their fortune, or whatever else. If Rick knows this, is he going to try to then get something from Jim? Or is Jim just taking this big calculated risk that Rick may be here with a gun? I've stared people like you in the eyes. I don't think you got what it takes. Like, is that what's happening?
I originally felt like we just weren't going to see Jim again, but the more that I've sat with this episode and that scene, I do actually think we are going to get some sort of resolution on who this man actually is. And I think that for Jim, it's just so shocking to be confronted with this, whether he is the person who killed Rick's dad and he's like, oh my God, I've been found out,
Yeah.
or for his realization to be like, whoa, wait a second, I have a son. I had no idea. It feels like the third option where he knew about Rick and he just abandoned him is probably not the way that it is. But you guys have to let us know. What do you think it is? Do you think that Jim is his father, that Jim knew, that Jim didn't know, or is Jim the person who killed his father? It's starting to feel like to me that it's option two, that he is his father, but he just didn't know about it, and that the mother made this up to be able to protect Rick, thinking that Rick would never go and actually confront a murderer because it's crazy town.
I feel like ultimately we are going to see Jim again in the finale in one way or another. And I think a lot of it ties down to just the fact here that, okay, they know where Rick is staying. Like, there's no mystery there. And Jim's got plenty of reasons to go back to the hotel that he owns.
For sure.
Regardless of their relationship, he also knows at this point that, okay, Rick had a golden opportunity to kill him. He didn't do it. So that's going to make it seem like, okay, he's probably not going to kill me if I get into another situation like this either.
But the thing for Jim is that if he did actually kill Rick's father, he does need to find a way to deal with this because Rick actually knows. So that confrontation is going to end up having to happen. I think if he's actually Rick's father, I think he probably is going to take a minute to actually do the research to see if there is a way to actually confirm that he is or isn't Rick's father. I mean, anybody could come in there and be like, hey, this has happened. This is, what happened with my mom. This is what she said. But Jim could be like, well, she could have said anything. Like, yeah, maybe I hooked up with her, but maybe this isn't actually my son. And maybe he wants to know because, again, money is involved, right?
I feel like if we do see Jim again, the odds do tilt in the favor that, okay, he is Rick's father at that point, because then that becomes a scene that's a little bit more necessary. Because I started to think like, okay, if he is the person responsible for the killing here, he could just go down there with a whole troop of people to take Rick out. And that's the whole source of the shooting that we see at the start of the season. But this is where we're kind of like mixing different colors of Play-Doh at this point, where we're just sort of making this mass because whoever turns up at the White Lotus to kind of commence the chaos that we saw in the premiere, it's going to be a situation where Guy Talk then immediately is just like, let's do it. I'm here to save the day because he wants to try to impress Mook. Now, is he going to act that way if this is all then connected to Jim, someone who owns the hotel? Like, at what point is he going to think that that is a threat? And that's why I'm starting to think, like, starting as in literally right now in the middle of this video, think that, yeah, this idea of Jim being Rick's father might be true, because then you can have him come down, him not be connected with that chaos at the start of the season. And then you have someone else, whether it be the Vladivostok boys, whether it be someone connected to Greg, somebody else come to the hotel who Guy Talk will recognize immediately is a danger that needs to be taken out.
Yeah, I think there's this very specific moment in the White Lotus preview for this episode, which we have a video up here and you can check that out.
Yeah.
Where we see Rick and Chelsea embracing. He's smiling huge. The last time we saw him, he was in a room with Frank and a bunch of people doing a bunch of partying. And he looked like he was a little bit at peace, but not a big smile like we saw.
No.
So it's, to me, starting to feel like Jim is going to realize that he is actually his father, that he didn't know about it. He is going to go down there and have a talk with Rick and be like, son, I didn't know. Like, your mom never told me, but now we have this opportunity where we can connect, like, and find a way to sort of fill that hole in your heart and, fill my heart. I've missed all these years with you. I had no idea that you even existed. Is that something then, obviously it's complicated, right? So it will be complicated for Rick, but is that something then that could fill Rick's soul in a way where he's either like, you know what, I'm good. I've gotten what I need out of this and I feel better. Or, oh my God, I have this amazing opportunity where I can actually get to know my father. We now know about each other. Let's spend this time together, building with what little time we have left. That will then put that bigger smile on his face when he is embracing Chelsea, because that smile is huge.
It's really, really huge. And I mean, it could very well just be Chelsea and he's
Could
had
be
like the light shining down on him, but it could also be Jim and this connection of different things. Now, I will
just
say,
answers, right?
if he gets more answers and he gets this moment with Chelsea, it's going to make the scene where he dies that much more painful at the end of
I
this because
know. We both think he's gonna die.
it's just really at this point, if this scene happens with Jim and Jim has nothing to do with the chaos at the hotel, it might be a situation then where Rick dies because he's either trying to protect Chelsea, who has had death foreshadowing pretty much the
Yes.
entire season, or he's trying to protect Jim in this moment and trying to sacrifice. And there's this really interesting element to that when you think about everything that had supposedly happened to his dad based on what his mom told him. So there's a couple of different ways it could flow through that. But if Rick dies, and I think this is really important, I think Rick is going to die at peace, feeling as though he's done the right thing. I don't think this is going to be a death that is miserable in that sense. I think he's actually going to feel okay about the way in which he goes.
Yeah, I still also feel like Chelsea is pregnant and that this is going to be sort of this circle. Either Jim is the person that murdered Rick's dad, and then Rick is going to die, and now this child is going to grow up with a father who was murdered, or he's going to learn that this is actually his father. But now this child is going to end up growing up with a father who was murdered. I think it's just whatever the situation actually turns out to be.
Yeah.
I feel like Chelsea's pregnant with Rick's kid and that this kid is going to not have a father. His father will be murdered.
And all of this, ultimately, for better or for worse, ties into the fact that this finale is titled Amor Fati, this concept of just like living through all aspects of life, whether it be joy, tragedy, love, or pain. And I think that's applicable to a lot of different characters on this show. I don't think everything is going to be like really neatly tied up, but I think we'll get answers on a number of big question marks. And who knows, like the door could be open for one or two of these other characters, hopefully not even tied to Greg, who could come back for season 4, who just thankfully already been renewed.
Yeah.
All right, but that's where we are with the White Lotus and this idea of Rick and his father entering the finale. Do you still think it's possible that Jim is Rick's father? And if he is, why did he not say something in the moment when he had a golden opportunity with a gun pointed at him? But let us know your thoughts, your theories, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more coverage, including of the finale, also including The Last of Us coming very, very soon. And you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description. We are covering exclusively there The Pit on Max, Bosch Legacy on Prime Video, and we will see you here next time.